Okay, Diana, I'm very curious. If I say Mavis Pittilla, what are the first words that come to your mind when you think of her?
Miss Mavis, because I love to call her Miss Mavis, because she was young at heart. She was cheeky, understanding, compassionate, and wise.
Mm.
And she was tough as nails, but soft as a teddy bear, all at the same time. And, she had so much wisdom and knowledge and experience and compassion. And those are just, yeah, and I could think of a lot more words, but I think that's her in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Yeah.
And you say like tough and soft at the same time. Like
Yeah.
you mean as a mentor or also uh,
I think as a person, you have to be tough to be able to stand at the level and in the public eye that she was. So
mhm.
you have to be kind of, got to have a backbone.
Yeah,
So she was tough, but as a mentor, she was also tough as nails,
yeah.
but always with a gentle aspect. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Work.
that, she could really push you and make you see that where I say tough as nails is also make you reflect on who you are and
Hmm.
what you are doing that's stopping you from being all that you can be for spirit.
Yeah.
And that could be sometimes a tough little lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, but so actually, like if I hear you correctly, to bring out the best in you, to
Yes, yes,
push
but
you. Yeah.
she was also tough because she would not tolerate gum
Hmm.
in the classroom. I know many who would know that, and she would just come up to you and like put your hand up, and she did this literally with me, and like spit it out.
Spit it out. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I literally spat out my gum in her hand, and
Hmm.
tough in that sense, and tough in demanding the best, but also the toughness was also in a way sometimes letting you having to figure it out for yourself. I think that was tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not giving the answer straight away, but just
Yeah, but then there was the compassionate side where she would really help you and see you and understand you, and that's the compassionate part.
hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And like, what was can you tell me a little bit and how you yeah met her, how you came across her? What was the reason to choose her as your mentor? Because of course there are a lot of people in the
Yes.
field. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. The first time I met her, I was utterly terrified of her. I mean, terrified. I just signed up for Jose Goschalk's Dutch Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Classes had not started yet, but Mavis was doing a demonstration of mediumship with Jose. So I figured I'd go. And there was Mavis, and she was so powerful. And she just looked me dead in the eye and looked at me and said, "You." And that's all she said. I was like, oh my gosh. And she was so powerful as a medium.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the famous dems where she actually told somebody, get out your BlackBerry, type in or dial this number. You do not have this number, but this is the phone number of the mother of your friend who passed. Call them now during the demonstration. And it was correct. So that was me being terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she came to the Dutch Academy for Mediumship, of course, to teach classes.
Mm-hmm.
And she was part of that, and then she started doing the mentorships. And I think it was her first or second mentorship. I'm not sure which one, but I asked her to join if I could, attend her mentorship. She just had her cigarette. She just did this, looked at me, and said, "You are not ready, my dear." Oh my gosh, I felt like I could have, there should be a hole in the ground where I could disappear into.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years later, when I was just about to walk away from mediumship, I was called in the office of Miss Mavis. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be completely rubbish. I'm going to be put, all of that. And she and Jean said, we want you on your mentorship, on the mentorship. It starts in 2 weeks. Cancel all your plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. So that's how it happened. I was actually asked to
Asked to
join
do
the
it.
mentorship. And it was perfect timing, because at that timing I was completely distraught and ready to walk away from mediumship and spiritualism.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
And did she know that you were at that like almost breaking point, that you wanted to quit everything, or?
Yes, that's one of
Yeah.
the reasons she called me as well,
Yeah. Mm.
to lift me up. And
Mhm.
we, of course, you know, we'd seen each other many times over the years, you
Yeah.
know, at the college, the Dutch Academy weeks. I went to other courses in Ireland where she was, and
Mhm.
so we knew each other already.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this was my saving grace.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just curious if you want to talk about it. What was the reason that you went through that process? Happened,
Well,
or?
we all know that there can be quite a lot of unpleasant sides to mediumship and fellow mediums.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the reason. That was just the reason for me, and where I felt like nobody got me. I didn't get my own mediumship. It was all just, and she got me. You know, she gave me answers to so many things throughout my life that I had experienced. So many, I was going to say mystical, but mediumistical and psychic things that I'd asked many people. No one could explain it to me. And I thought I was cuckoo. But she explained every single thing to me.
Yeah.
So, and she understood. And that changed a lot for me. And because of that, I can do the same for others now.
Well, that's now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say like, yeah, because of course I can assume that she is a major influence in your work as a medium, but also in your life, I assume.
Yeah.
What is like, if you would say, if you look at your teachings now and your students, what is, in what way does she reflect in your way of teaching and your?
Well, apart from the fact that I name drop her all the time. So if I teach something that Mavis taught me, I'll always say, Mavis taught me this, I learned this from Mavis. But it's also the influence in constantly seeking and understanding and knowledge. So constantly questioning from the soul, but also from spirit. How does this work? How can we do this? Why? Just why? And she once told me I was like the bane of her existence, with all my questions always, but why? But she was the same, so hey. But it was just, it influences me is the understanding of that spiritualism and mediumship are, or just mediumship in essence, is not mechanical. It's not just evidential, that we work in communication. We do not communicate alone. And that's it. It is a friendship, partneringship, all of that. And that's why what her influence is to me mostly, I think.
Yeah.
And the logical a part of it too.
Logical approach, yeah.
Yeah.
Your view, your like, how do you see mediumship and spiritualism?
Well, see, I am a spiritualist, but I do not think that spiritualism and mediumship are necessarily completely connected.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So,
No.
because, you know, before I was a spiritualist, I was a medium.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. I think you can be a universalist, you can be anything. But medium, sorry, I forgot your question.
No, yeah, I didn't even formulate it also. I just was curious, like, the question was, how do you view mediumship and spiritualism? But of course, it is a little bit fake question.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So I think for me, if you look at the world and as humans today, and as humans have always been, for me, this is one of the most healing things and the most natural, loving, kind, gentle, and supportive things that there is in the world and forever will be. That's what I believe.
Okay. I like the thing now that you struggle with, or are there still things that you struggle with now as a?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You mean as a medium?
As a medium.
Oh, honey, yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, even a while back, I was like, poor Mavis, I think she must have got really exhausted because I was like begging her to help me as my mediumship had changed. And I knew, and I could hear her say, you know, it usually takes a few months. This means there's progress. Deal with it, roll with it.
Mm.
But it's, yeah, when I've always been used to either clairvoyantly, so subjectively, or even on occasions objectively see spirit. That was my thing, my clair. And then suddenly that was gone.
Mm.
So all I would get was like a picture of something, an object.
Yeah.
And the first time that happened was in front of 80 people. So yeah, I still struggle with my mediumship. I still struggle finding the balance between my personal life,
Yeah.
my mediumship. Yeah, I do still struggle, but it's one of those where the struggle is always worth it
Indeed.
because it's grow. It makes you grow in a lot of ways. And if I struggle, then I can help somebody else who struggles.
Yeah. Exactly. If you struggle, you learn, you grow, and
Mhm.
yeah, I also see it that way. And like you say, you almost like call her for help. Do you experience that like in that way, that if you reach out to her now, that she helps
Uh,
you, still
yeah,
inspires you?
she's still there. Not every time, because I think, but you know, but even before, you know, there was always this sort of telepathic connection or soul connection, because we've tested it throughout the years several times when she was still here on Earth. And I would say, oh, I could have sworn you were there with me and you heard me because I was blah, blah, blah. She's like, hmm. So yeah, she's still there and she's made her presence very much known.
Yeah.
And especially when I needed it. That is, you know, and of course there are many, many people who knew Mavis much better than I did and do, who had much more teachings from her. But I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be able to have had the 2 mentorships and to have had all those years previously, also thanks to Jose and Karel,
Yeah.
where you have the tutoring and the teaching. And, well, this is awful. But one of the best things that was for me, sorry, this is awful. I know people are going to have an opinion on this one. I was so glad I smoked because the best moments and the best insights and actually private tutoring I had was with the 2 of us outside having a cigarette break.
Yeah, bro, yes,
And that's where I learned so many things from her. Yeah. So I'm
yeah.
really glad I was a smoker.
You a smoker. Yeah. I can imagine, of course. So that informal, you just relax, and then things
Yeah.
come up spontaneously. Yeah.
Yeah, or that was my moment to go, but Mavis, but why? But why? But why?
Why this? Why that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, you mentioned the power. Right? Why she was so powerful. So when you met her, like
Yeah.
what would you say is her? What made her a good medium, a powerful medium? What was her strength?
I would say down to earth, common sense with a heart of gold. Because she had such understanding and compassion for spirit and the spirit world, she treated them like people.
Yeah.
She was never the medium. She was the servant of the spirit world. And she was there to lift them that helping hand. And that is what I believe made her so powerful.
Yeah.
Is she treated them with respect. And that is one thing she taught me and has been ingrained into my bones by her.
Yeah, I heard her say once in an interview, like, my mediumship is not about angels and all galactic beings. It's just about moms and dads, and so, yeah. So she was, it appeared to me also like down to earth, just in that people who are deceased, and that's it. And
Yep, and that's it. And it's like often people would, you know, ask questions or say something, and she'd just say, "Does that make sense?" You know, and if it wasn't logical down to earth, but yet there are many things I know baffled her as well. So as it does all of us, because spirit does like to shake things up a bit.
Yeah. Like what? Like, if you give an example?
Well, I don't know if I would say this correctly, but Mavis had a teaching about worlds within worlds.
Mm.
Many will know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And she received that a few decades before through her mediumship, but never had it proven. She could never find it. And it wasn't after until a few decades, if I'm saying this correctly, I thought about 30 years, that she actually found records of what she was saying, and she had been told that there were records she would find. So that is where, you know, your patience and your trust and your faith is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and shaking. You know, this is one memory I have. I'm going to say it, where things shook up was on the mentorship program, and she was teaching, of course, but it was, you know, there was something, you know, in the air. I don't know what it was. And then suddenly Mavis just dropped into trance state, and Miss Emma Hardinge Britton took over the class. And it was, Mavis was in serious trance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she could not, this is one, you know, you cannot, it's the real deal.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then she came back and she was like, kind of like, what happened? Oh, did they do that? You know? And that was her baffled that while 1 minute she was talking, and then Spirit or Miss Hardinge Britton
Mm-hmm.
found that Mavis was, as Mavis said, not doing a correct job.
Mm-hmm.
So she took over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I remember the shock. I remember the shock on her face. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool to experience that.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah.
You do also yourself? Do you also do trance yourself, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm more also of a spontaneous, although I'm going on a trance course again, but it's usually for me when it feels the push.
Mm-hmm.
I do not sit for it anymore. I do not train for it.
Mm.
When it's there, it's there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, you know, follow, and some will chop my head off for that one, but it's to follow the will. I don't sit in a cabinet. I do sit in the power. And like Mavis, I'm in the power when I'm doing the dishes, ironing, and cleaning. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You don't go create spaces and like rituals, that stuff. Yeah.
No, and again, that's the common sense.
Common sense and down to
Down to earth.
mindset. Yeah.
Yep, because that is one thing about Mavis, I can tell you. I always felt guilty, you know, for not sitting in the power like everyone did. I did not have the cabinet. And then I said, but you know, I'm always talking to Spirit when I'm cleaning, and I'm a cleaner. So when I'm cleaning or doing laundry or doing the dishes or whatever, and she said, I do exactly the same. So that kind of, she said, they hear you. And if the intention is there, the energy is there, it will happen as it should. And if they need a change, they will let you know.
They will let you know that you do something wrong.
Yeah.
So it's not really because some people indeed say it's a must to sit every day and do it very disciplined and with the right setting, etc. But as I already hear you, you don't feel that way.
Oh, and some people will really have my head for this one. But no, and I do, you know, I do sit in the power.
Yeah.
I do, you know, there will be times where just in the middle of the day, even if it's 2 minutes, and before every sitting, I sit in the power.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a few minutes. But the power, this is, you know, also what Mavis taught me, the power is within you. You are the power. And once you recognize and feel how much you are the power, and the power is within you, the power will always be. And the power will flow as the power needs be.
Yeah. And like, do you feel over the years, because you've been in this for how many years?
Okay, the spiritualism way, 14.
40. Well, a lot of years. Do you feel like it's changed? It is changing the way we, in general, we approach, when we work with the spirit world? Do you feel it's changing, and is it
Yes.
for better or for the worse?
Well, better or worse, that's kind of like a debate,
Mm,
a whole different scale. But I do feel it's changing. And what I see is where I feel like we're going back to the natural ways in a lot of ways.
mm-hmm,
Although I've never experienced them in the way pioneers as Mavis and Gordon and the lot would have. But I feel like we're going back to the natural state, and where, especially here in Holland, where you don't have, like the keurslijf,
mm-hmm.
where we can, yeah, you don't have to fit in a box.
Mm,
And where I feel like, even if I look at the courses now that are being taught at the college, how different from years ago. I never would have imagined years ago a science thing, or pyramids, or working with brain waves.
mm,
It's changing.
yeah.
And what I feel changes most in mediumship is the people who start to feel and believe in the presence of spirit and mediumship, because those are the ones who are changing the mediumship for the mediums.
Mm-hmm,
It is their need from their soul and their spirit, as well as the need of the discarnate souls and spirit,
mm-hmm,
that changes us. And that is something I feel dearly. The need is there, the mourning is there, but also a lot of light bulbs are on these days.
mm-hmm.
And I think we change because of the light we step in.
Agree. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and is there anything that you wanted to share yourself? If we talk about Mavis Pittilla in general, could be something, a memory, but also something else that you think this is what people should know, or what really is something for her that is what she left for us to take on board.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I was just going to say it almost as Mavis, because she would always say, "Oh my goodness gracious me,"
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
"gracious me."
yeah.
There are, she was very humble.
Mm,
She did not like the attention at all.
mm,
She would be slightly mortified even by this interview and all of that.
mm-hmm.
But she loved the platform. She loved the platform, but was also, very humble, and could be at times, I wouldn't say nervous, because she said she was never nervous anymore.
Mm,
But it was just the wish and the desire to be there. And what I liked about Mavis is that she had an open mind. She truly had an open mind, and she was a protector.
mm,
She was a severe protector, and I know she protected me a lot. And I know probably many others as well.
mm,
And, she was a fighter. She overcame so much
mm-hmm.
to do that, but she had a wicked dry sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think that's what people need to know about her, that she was feisty,
Mm-hmm.
definitely feisty,
Yeah,
but a
yeah.
good sense of humor. And what I liked about Mavis was that she was self-reflective.
Mm,
She was okay in admitting I was wrong,
yeah.
or she was okay in saying that I need to change. And those are the things which I feel that every single one developing currently, working currently, or will start developing should take a lesson from, is self-reflection. And I think that was huge for her,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, there are so many memories. I was
Yeah.
just thinking of them, also just of giggling, and how, where someone just by the look on their face, that would say exactly enough. And Actually, my mind is going quite blank right now, but there's
A lot.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And, you know, Mavis was the first to start mentorship programs.
Oh yeah.
She was the first to do it in that way.
Mm.
And she took a lot of stuff for it.
Yeah.
But what she did, along with Jean, because you can't have Mavis without Jean, you can't have Jean without Mavis, is they truly were true pioneers,
Mm.
but forever humble.
I think that is important. Well, once it gets to your head, then I
Yep.
think it's very dangerous if you go that route. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can, and it happened to everyone. It happened to her as well. I mean, read her books and you'll see.
Mm.
But it's, you know, it happens to all of us. And I think because if you've lived through it,
Yeah.
then you understand.
Exactly. So you understand also the feeling, how is different, how things change. It is.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also how it is to stand alone,
Mm.
how it is to, get up above everybody else and
Mm.
be aware that your head might be chopped off, but the soul and spirit, there's a thing in there that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you look at the people from the mentorship groups, if you look at all of them, how they are now serving spirit and teaching those teachings now,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that this is what her legacy would have been. It was the teachings and the understanding,
Yeah.
and no, there's a lot of things I could say, but I won't. Um,
Feel free to
yeah, well, I know it's just, what I liked about Mavis, and that's just me personally, is that, she was a firecracker.
mm.
I love that. I was terrified of it at the same time. But what I liked about Mavis is that we had a lot of common interests, which is weird if you think of completely different backgrounds, different age groups,
Mm-hmm.
but that she was just a normal person.
Yeah.
And and that goes for all mediums and teachers, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But what I liked about her was that she was like, I'm telling people that I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
And that she would say, even in class, okay, I just learned this from spirit, so we're going to change this. Or I said this, but that is not correct. So let's do
Mm-hmm.
this now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's, for me, is as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But with the humor and love. And there's this one story
Mm-hmm.
I would love to share if that's all right.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a combination. So many years ago, when I was still in training, little puppy,
Mm-hmm.
I was invited with someone else to do a dem at someone's house. And we went, and I remember it was so sad because there was a recipient. And I remember that his brother came through who had just passed in horrific death. And the brother said to his brother, so they were twins, to pass a message on to their mother,
Yeah.
who was not there that evening. What happened, fast forward, and there were certain details I will not share, of course, due
Mm-hmm.
to privacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happened years after in the mentorship, there was a fellow student was standing in front of the class demming and got certain information. And I was just like, wait a minute, what? This sounds familiar, but it was not said to be for me.
Mm.
It was said to be for somebody else. And I totally understand with the information that came. And I just thought, oh, never mind, I'm being silly, yada, yada. And then Mavis steps in, and she stepped in and she intervened.
Mm.
And she said, this woman coming through with her son is not for that lady, but that it was for me. And it was this woman from spirit, the mother of the twins. And she just wanted to say, thank you for
Yeah.
all those years ago And my boys are now with me. So her other son had passed in the meantime
That's
as well.
cool.
But it was a lesson for all of us. And she talked about that one after that, because it was the understanding that we must never underestimate the gravity, responsibility, but also the love and bright light of beacon of hope and healing we can bring. And she always taught about that, talked about it in class, but this was the example.
Yes.
For me, this was the living, breathing experience of what she had been talking about, that it is our reputation in spirit. And I tucked that, literally, she told me, tuck that one in your heart.
Yeah.
And I did. But that is one experience I will never, ever forget.
Never forget.
And which I tell my students all the time to understand, to truly understand. And that is actually, that story describes Mavis's teaching the best, I believe.
Get all goosebumps. It's like,
Yeah.
and then whenever you say that you almost you almost stopped all those years ago, and then you tell this, like, wow.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, the first time she actually asked me to demonstrate mediumship with her and 2 others, oh my God, you will not believe how I felt on that platform. I was sick as a dog.
Yeah.
But she was proud of me. She was proud. And, to be asked, that was, but always, of course, with critique, but I do the same. So, hey.
Yeah. That's how you grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you talked about, like, she was never nervous. Like, how was it that she wasn't nervous? Because I guess that's what a lot of people want to know. People also ask me when I do them, are you nervous? Are you nervous? Like, what was her secret to deal with nervous or to not be nervous?
I'm still learning that one, because I still get extremely nervous beforehand. And she told me, because I trust. She said, it's in the hands of God. It's the hands and spirit, and I trust. And that one is only starting to seep in with me now. It's beginning. But that is, she said, that is why, because she trusts, because spirit never, ever lets you down. It only happens, or it only doesn't happen, when you let spirit down.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And it is up to us what we offer to spirit. If we offer ourselves to them, they will carry us.
That's how it is. It is. Sorry, we often make it so much about us. I feel when we go, like, for a dam, and then there's a lot of people, and then we say, oh, and then we make ourselves nervous because we make it about us. Like, I want to do good. Please let me be good tonight. But that's how I think how it goes wrong. Like, if you, like you say, just trust and be.
That's me beforehand, like nervous before a dem, but then right before the dem starts, the second basically step in that sacred space. I know, and this is one thing I always do for myself when I sit in the power or before I dem, is I literally step aside and say to spirit, I offer my heart, my soul, my mind, all of me to you, for you, and for your loved ones. And that helps, and it puts you right where the ego shouldn't be, just enough to perform, because you need a little bit of ego to perform, but where you put it away and aside and understand. Another thing Mavis taught me was that spirits can be nervous. They can be emotional. They can be distraught. They can be, a little bit eager, but then back off. So that is also what Mavis taught me, because I was always like, okay, come on. But what she taught me was sense them.
Yeah.
What are their needs? How do they feel? Does this person want to talk about an emotion right now or not? If not, comfort them. Even while you're demonstrating mediumship, let them know that they are safe with you, and say to them, I've got you, with an open heart, with a love and compassion. And that is where you can help them. And that is as it should be.
Amazing. Yeah. Again, this shows again like she sees them for what they are, like people, real living people.
Yes, and the true
So,
compassion,
mhm.
the true compassion, but also just, understanding a completely different personality,
Yeah.
but also where you understand that it's never just one person. There's
Hmm.
always several spirits there.
Yeah.
Sometimes one is the communicator, but they never walk alone.
No, no, no.
And, it's our job to get the job done.
Hmm.
No matter what rules or whatnots there is, it is our job to serve them. And their will is what we need to do.
If you like, tell me this, like I really feel like she has such a different understanding of the spirit world. Not necessarily like how the techniques, like how you do this, how you do that, how you see it, but this example that you give like, right now, like it shows so much. Yeah, how do you say it? Not wisdom per se, but understanding
Yeah,
of
yes,
yeah,
that's the depth of understanding.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
see, I know I said that in the beginning, but these little stories actually explain better what I mean,
yeah.
and how Mavis was as a tutor,
Mm-hmm.
as a medium, as a person, but also as a servant for spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because she always said, no matter what, I am a servant of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's never forget that. And, she truly understood it, but she also was a master of technique.
Mm-hmm.
Do not be mistaken. She was a master of what she called the craft. And
Craft.
that is also where what I call the tough as nails would come in,
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
because that would be where we would have exercises where everyone would go away for break,
Mm-hmm.
lunchroom would be empty, then you would have to be there with somebody else, a scriber, and then you would have to go in the power. And then while there was nobody there, you would have to say after break which spirit would come for which person in which chair. And it literally would have to be row 5, third seat from the left. The mother of that and that person is there and saying so and so and so and so.
Mm-hmm.
But the assignment was for everyone who had left the room to come back after break and not sit on the same spot as before.
Mm,
And it would be, the technique and the craft is also, how do you keep an audience with you?
yeah.
When is a moment for emotion? When is a moment for humor?
Mm-hmm.
When do you have to take a break? How do you split 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different spirits for different
Mm-hmm.
recipients, and kind of go in like a Wimbledon game,
Mm-hmm.
back to back and so it would not be one contact at once. It would be multiple contacts, multiple fathers or multiple mothers speaking to them at the same time. So it would be, your mother is so and so, but yours is this, and yours is like so, but you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's just a full conversation.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would say, it's not, she converses with them and communicates. And I think she understood the 5 love languages of spirit. Honestly, I think she understood that to a T.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, really. Craft, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the craft.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because there's the mediumship and then there's the craft.
Just craft, yeah.
And that is what makes it gold.
Mm-hmm. And you talked also, that was my last question. You talked about protection. This was very protective. Like, what do you mean? Is it like in the toughness the struggles that you face as a medium, how to deal with that, or is something else that you mean?
Well, I can only speak from my experience. Um, she was very much against bullying, very much against egos and whatnot. And unfortunately, I experienced that, as many have. You know, it wasn't just me, and many have experienced that. And she would literally protect me. And I remember one time on a week course where I thought I was hiding it well, but it was really bad. So, and it was on the first day, the afternoon, she just looked up to me, and I think it was a class of 26 people. And she said, "You, come here. You are going to sit beside me for the rest of the week, and I will wrap you around in my energy and my love and keep you safe." And she did. And the other deal was I had to translate for her all week, so I did. So I was her little whisper interpreter, but I was that quite often for her anyhow. So that was just what we did. But that's just one of the things where she protected me, and she helped me understand at one time what a spiritual depression could be like. And it's actually something that exists and can happen, and pulled me out of it. You know, and she would protect me in many ways, protect me from myself as well. So I could be very, very, very critical of myself to a point where it's detrimental to myself and mediumship, a little bit perfectionist. But that's where she also protected me from me.
Yeah.
And calling me on it. So, you know, she was very, very protective.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And I often think it is through experience what we become. So I think a lot of Mavis's understanding came from things she experienced herself.
So, yeah. And she also became, of course, became a medium. Sounds always like how you are born a medium, I think. Yeah, we are always a medium, just the development. But and you know what I mean? She started working as a medium, pretty late for her. If you look on average, like, how was that? How come you know that? Why that is? Or
yes, I know, because she became very ill, and she was almost at the death's doorstep.
Oh yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
And then Spirit intervened, and thankfully she listened.
Yeah.
So that, but you can read about that in the Droplets of God.
Yeah.
That would
like the man who said go see.
Yeah, I mean, I know the story from Mavis herself, but I think the narrative is better in the book than I can tell you. You know, it's just really just the amazing stories. But what I like about Mavis's story is that she chose to follow the path of her soul, even though there was a time where the mind really fought against it. So that was the power of her soul. And then she turned that strong mind into fighting for spirit. And I think that is what one of the other things that made her strong.
That made her strong, yeah. Beautiful. And like they say, nothing bad about the dead, but just to be, I just want to ask, like, is there something you said, like, that part of Mavis I didn't like as much, or I think like she could have done that different, or I wouldn't do this if I was in her shoes, because of course we are all, how much you love her, I know. Just to be
well, but you know, I clearly remember Miss Mavis's hissy fit moments. So that was, you know, she used to have a nickname as well many years ago because of her temper. And that was, you know, and that really quieted down over the years. I mean, I remember seeing her temper, and I was like, but she was right. But what I think is, I think she was, it's, you know, for all of us it goes, and I'm equally like her in that sense, stubborn. So, you know, where it can be good for you and it can be not so good for you. And there are things where I do disagree. Also, when it comes to mediumship, there are things, I'm trying to think of something right now, because I do tell my students, you know, Mavis said this, but I don't agree with that. And I can almost see her face, you know. But, of course, there are things where I feel like that was not very good, or that was not how I should have done it.
Mhm.
So if there are things I didn't like about Mavis, yeah, there were certain times I was actually thought, oh boy, because like I said, she was a firecracker
Mhm.
and could have a hissy fit, but I didn't like it at the moment.
Mhm.
But there's not a lot I think I'd say I'd like 98% about Mavis.
Mhm.
I really did. But that's only because she was so down to earth, and so open.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And what would you want to give to the young mediums out there like myself, but people also maybe who are just starting at the beautiful phase of just discovering the spirit world and finding
Oh,
out that there's a whole reality there to sustain us, to help us in our life? What would you want to give as advice to them?
oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I would love to go back to that time where it's all like new and exciting. You're just fresh as rain.
Yeah.
But my advice would be listen wisely, silently and quietly, but reign like fire when you need to. Do not conform, adapt, but do not conform. Do not change who you are to fit in. And the advice is, spirit, they're your friends. And they're not just your friends, they need you. They depend on you. So remember, you always have to be that helping hand to carry those who depend on you. We are their eyes, their ears, their voice, their heart, and their memory. So trust and silence the ego, silence the mind. And you cannot do this without your heart. As long as your heart is open, the rest will follow.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.